The French Immersion program in Canada exists since the 1970s. In Vancouver, we have 3 secondary schools which offer French Immersion, and more than 15 elementary schools. The French Immersion program at Van Tech started in 1991 with about 15 students. Now, 240 students are in the program. In this documentary, we have tried to find out more about what it means to be in French Immersion, and how French Immersion students view themselves and how they are perceived.
The Frenchies are generally more talkative, more loud, more happy to be around, and like a lot of the English kids some of them are quiet.
I think academically we're more, we might not be like better academically, but we're more prone to be more like exuberant and out there with our projects and with like presentations and stuff.
Frenchies kind of tend to stand out more, I guess.
They're way more outgoing.
Yeah, and they're louder, and they're pretty smart, I guess.
I think, yeah,
they
they're
seem smarter.
More interactive. They're social butterflies.
Well, French immersion students, they tend to be a little bit more social than other students, and they're always in a group. And they seem to be a little bit more mature, though not necessarily act more mature, but there is a certain maturity about them that they stand out compared to other students.
Well, the English students don't seem to be as close, because the French immersion, you have 2 classes pretty much, and throughout all the years you get to become really close with these people.
Well, the French immersion students, they tend to be more social because I think that they're a really tight-knit community. It means that they have a lot of, more opportunities for social advancement. But not only that, English is such a large stream that there's so many different types of people, whereas the French stream gets, I think, really homogenized as the years goes by. And I think that's good for the friendship.
Everybody in French immersion has known each other for so long, whether it be from grade 8 or kindergarten, so we're kind of like a family.
Being in French immersion has enriched my social life.
The Frenchies at Tech, I see them as hipsters and kind of chilled, laid back people who just like different things in life. I don't know.
Generally, I find them to be a little bit more focused and on task when they're finally doing the work. However, sometimes it takes them a little bit more time when they're done socializing.
That the French immersion students, they are very communicative, so they like to communicate their ideas verbally, and I know that's a challenge for some of them in the math class, because as we know with math there's a lot of just, here are the formulas, let's write them down. There's a lot less of that discussing these ideas, and so that's the main thing that I find challenging is that.
I'm definitely going to say that French immersion students have a lot more confidence. They're much more willing to get up in front of a class and be volunteers, or they're able to express themselves much better. I'm going to say that's the biggest difference.
Because French immersion students have just been together for so long, and for me, I went to Hastings only for grade 7, so I've only known those kids from grade 7 to 12. But even grade 8, trying to find new friends in grade 7 is a totally different thing. So, I don't know, I would just probably say, even academically, I would say French immersion students are more focused, because to be in French, you have to have a certain level of, want to do well academically.
Some of them were in late immersion since grade 6. So they've been together, they know each other so well. So it's quite a rare phenomenon. I think to have students together like this and then move in the same neighborhood from let's say grade 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So they are moving in a pack, in a way. They're moving as a group, and they know each other very well. I've taught in regular program, like the regular French program, when they come in, most students don't know each other too well. So you have to work a lot on them to get to know each other. If I want to do something on drama, on theater, or whatever, I don't need to work that too much with French immersion students. They know that. They know each other very well.
Now that we know how French immersion students are perceived, we wanted to find out how they behave and what they contribute to the classroom dynamic.
I think sometimes you get treated better. But for some teachers, like actually, some do.
I'm sure that's probably our fault if they do. I think it's our fault if they treat us differently, just because we're probably louder and more annoying. But I think if you look at it, we probably do pretty better than most of the other kids on average. So at some point, if a certain demographic is getting different grades, then they should get somewhat different treatment.
Honestly, no. I think that most of the teachers treat the French immersion students because the French immersion students behave differently. However, I think they treat the French immersion students differently, but not solely on the basis that they're having been in French immersion. They treat them differently because they speak up more often, be it in or out of turn. They're generally louder, although that's usually a positive thing.
I've had teachers that are like, wow, I see this whole class is French immersion students. Like, this is going to be a real challenge this year. But honestly, it's usually the French immersion students, and I'm just making a generalization, but at least with the teacher that I experienced that with the most, it was the French immersion students that were doing the best. Because I feel like we've grown up with like having teachers treat us like as people and not just as students. And that's something about the French culture as well, but we were actually the ones that did the best in the class because we weren't afraid to ask questions and we weren't afraid to speak up if we didn't get something. So by the end of the year, yeah, maybe we were the chattiest, but I think that that teacher learned to live with it.
Well, in one of the science classes, one of the teachers treats all the French immersions like we don't pay attention, we don't do work, we're just all around like not paying attention and stuff, but in fact we are participating and doing everything.
Most of the time they're actually pretty receptive. I think once they have their time where they're done socializing, and once you get them focused, they work really well and they're really productive. They always have been in my classrooms.
Well, I think that they're so used to talking to each other, and I think any teacher would say this, that something comes into their head and they immediately start to say it to the person they know because they want to share it with them. So, that's kind of makes things a little rickety sometimes.
Sometimes you'll get a little bit of that kind of negative, resistant attitude. So in that way, it's hard to do my job, because when you're teaching and you're getting someone who has a negative attitude, it's hard. Other times I have had complaints, not this year, but in other years where students, there's a large population of those flex or French immersion students, people complaining outside of class to me that, I'm finding it hard to concentrate because people are talking too much, so that in that way it affects the students' learning.
Well, the thing is, a French immersion student, because they've been so used to this idea of language, of being on stage, for example, being in the classroom, using the language, being vocal. So they have developed that sense that first go, they are vocal, it's not like the quiet hello and they sit down and they wait. They may come first because they've trained to sort of express their opinion and also to be on stage and to be in front of a crowd all the time. So you have to play with that. Sometimes they have a tendency to, you think they're coming first.
Most of them are independent and self-motivated, and they already take the initiative to want to learn and to ask good questions. So just having that self-motivation and willingness to learn is a great asset.
So sometimes you have to keep that in mind, that they are individuals, but at the same time they are part of a group. They have an identity that's belong, and each grade has its own identity, I would say.
More loud.
A negative, resistant attitude.
More social.
More confidence.
More focused.
More annoying.